I'd like to call the meeting to order this evening. This is a regularly scheduled Greer City Council meeting called and convened this evening, November the 10th, 2015, being duly assembled. I'd like to ask that you join us as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our invocation, which will be led by Councilman Wayne Griffin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Father God, it's once again a few of your humble servants come to thy holy and righteous name. Father, I want to say thank you for all the many wonderful blessings that you bestowed upon us. For truly you've been better to us than we've been to ourselves. Father, I ask you if you would continue to bless our city, Father God. Bless its leadership, Father God. Bless its employees, Father God. For the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. These and all the blessings, yes, your precious Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, let me take this opportunity to welcome you this evening and for setting aside a time to come to the council meeting this evening. We set a time aside at the first of every meeting that we call a public forum. This is an opportunity for those that wish to speak in regards to items of interest to the council and matters that may be appropriate to the agenda to come and speak. And we have a couple of folks that have indicated that they'd like to speak this evening. Typically what we do in that regard is ask you to come to the podium and to make your comments there. That way we can have an accurate record of those. Also, when you come to the podium, if you would state your name and an address for us, that would be helpful as well too, so the clerk will have that as a matter of record. This evening we have Andrea Burnett and they would like to speak in regards to item 22, 2015. So, Andrea, okay. If you'll come to the podium, please.
Hi, my name is Andrea Burnett. I live at 108 McKissick Street, Greer, South Carolina. I've been living there for about 31 years, and to my understanding, they want to put apartments across the street from my house. I don't mind putting houses, but I don't want to put no apartments, no government apartments. There's no apartments around there as it is now. I mean, they can put houses, but no apartments. And the guy that owns the property, never mind. I have an issue, but that's something else. But that's all. I don't want no apartments out there.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Hughes, Jim Hughes is our next speaker this evening.
My name is Jim Hughes. I live at 121 Fuller Street. The lady just spoke is a neighbor of mine. I bought that house a couple years ago, me and my wife. I bought it through HomePath. The object of HomePath is to try to get homeowners in that will live in the house, not rent it out. They want to stabilize the neighborhood. And it's a nice neighborhood with single-family homes, and I prefer that they don't put an apartment complex in there. The idea is to make it homeowners, and stabilizing. And the deal I made with HomePath was, fix it up and live there, you know what I mean? And so I'd like to keep it that way and not have apartments put in there. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, sir. We'll bring our public forum to a conclusion. Council, in your packet this evening are the minutes from the meeting on October the 27th, 2015. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second in that regard. Are there any items of note for the clerk this evening? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Ms. Booker.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Miss Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, this evening, we're going to take the opportunity to recognize some employees. This is an opportunity that we exercise on a regular basis, and part of our Team Greer approach is to recognize those employees who have reached milestones in terms of their employment with the city of Greer. We are always glad to set time aside at the first of our meetings to recognize these employees and their years of service with the city. Part of what we do in regards to that is offer them a certificate in that regard and a little time off for their service to the city. And so I will ask the city administrator if he would to join me in front, and ask Mr. Seifert if he would to open the gate there for us, please, sir. Each one of these certificates contains a resolution that reads thus, and I've got all of the names, so yours won't include all of the names, but yours will have the appropriate name in it. And it says, whereas the city of Greer endeavors to recognize and reward its dedicated and faithful employees, Joseph Borelli has served 5 years in our fire department. Mike Davis has served in the recreation department for 5 years. Barbara Ferguson has served in court administration for 5 years. Susan Howell has served in the finance department for 5 years. Wesley Keller has served in the police department for 5 years. Kevin Miller has served in the fire department for 5 years. Joseph Phillips has served in the police department for 5 years. We had a good run 5 years ago, didn't we? We kept our HR person pretty busy, didn't we? Kirsten Presley has served in the court administration for 20 years. Chuck McConnell has served in the fire department for 25 years. And whereas these employees have served in a distinguished and professional manner, now be it therefore resolved that the City Council of the City of Greer, South Carolina, in a duly assembled meeting, wishes to officially recognize and commend to those employees for their dedicated service which they have performed. Be it further resolved that the City of Greer hereby rewards these dedicated employees with a certificate of appreciation and an administrative day off with pay, approved this the 10th day of November 2015. If you would come forward when I call your name, we'd like to present you with your certificate. If you would stay here at the front, we'll get a picture, and then I'm going to ask everyone to join us as we celebrate with you, recognizing these milestones. Mr. Joseph Borelli. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll just stay here with us for just a minute. Mike Davis, Recreation Department. Barbara Ferguson from Court Administration. Thank you so much. Susan Howell. Thank you. Appreciate it. Wesley Keller. Wesley, we appreciate your service. Thank you. Kevin Miller. Oh, Kevin Miller. Yeah, Kevin Miller. Oh, they're on a call. Okay. He's earning his keep tonight. Joe Phillips. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your service. Kirsten Presley. Thank you for all you do. Appreciate it. And Chuck McConnell. Oh, they're walking in the door now. Okay, good. Perfect timing. Come on up. We got a certificate for you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your service. Kevin, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Join me, if you would, in a round of applause for these employees. We have a presentation this evening in regards to the Century Park. Century Park, as you are aware, is one of our largest parks and serves a number of functions here in the city and gets a lot of use. And one of the things that that we have realized needed to be done in terms of the Century Park was some update projects, and we've gotten some new bridges out there. We've gotten some new equipment, and we also are working on a new building that will help us better serve our ball fields out there. And it looks like Mr. Red Watson is going to give us an update and an overview of the work and how things are coming along. Mr. Watson, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mayor Danner and members of council for the opportunity to update you all on this project tonight. We selected Langley and Associates architectural firm here in Greer for the design of the press box building at Century Park. The building that was originally built in 1976 was demolished on August 13th of this year, and as you can see here, it really opened up the space and allowed us to see what we could do with it. During the planning process, we found that the space would be better utilized with two buildings instead of one. The first is a press box and concession stand combo centrally located between the three ball fields. The second building that you'll see on the right side of the picture is a restroom facility with interior storage and a picnic shelter. This is a view of the press box and concession stand as if you were standing between fields 1 and 2. A view of the same building. This would be as if you were walking down the hill from Kids Planet. In order to centrally locate the building between all three fields, we had to extend the entrance to the upstairs press box to just beyond the retaining wall. If we would have used a switchback staircase coming down from there, we would have only had a little over a foot of clearance between the corner of that post and the retaining wall. This is a view of the restroom building with picnic shelter. If you were standing at the concession stand kind of looking towards the lower entrance. And a view of the same building just if you were standing down in the parking lot looking back up towards the fields. We met with staff from our codes department, finance and IT department, Steve Grant, our city engineer, Greer CPW, the lighting company from Chesney. We really wanted to make sure that all of the codes and needs were being met during this process and that all the ADA standards and regulations were being followed. We hope to finalize the bid documents at the end of this week, advertise for bid next week, and hopefully if we can stay on that schedule, we will break ground in December. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, questions or comments?
Red in the green space on the where it's wooded now.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing anything with that wooded space? Just leaving it, right?
We do have plans to do some grading, not really where the woods are, but the flat area going back up towards We have some plans to do some grading that will hopefully redirect the stormwater that's coming down through there and washing on the fields. It'll extend basically right down through there and kind of around the retaining wall. And there's also plans to do some work in the entire plaza that you can see, the gray area right there, to address the stormwater that's kind of coming down through there and also washing out towards Field 1.
So did you get a grant to fund the whole project?
The grant is through the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It's a 50-50 match.
What is-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Will there be anything done about the dugouts? Will they be included in any of this, or is this basically taking care of the concession stand?
In this scope of work, for this particular project, we will not address the structure of the dugouts. We'll probably go back with windscreens and update those, but not as this direct project itself.
You mentioned the plaza, the area between the two facilities there. What will the surface of that be?
We have it spec'd right now for concrete, asking for an alternate for asphalt as well.
Okay. Others?
We'll get new bleachers? Or is that not part of it either?
She's trying her best.
I'm making the list right now.
I've already put in a list, haven't I? All right, thank you. It looks good.
We do plan, lastly, we do plan for new scoreboards on each field and a new PA as part of the press box also that will have wireless controllers that you could operate from behind the backstop or in the second floor in the press box.
Right. Thank you for the update. We appreciate the
Looks good.
information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Driggers, I believe the floor is yours for our administrator's report this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council do remember we can upgrade any facility. It's just a matter of money. Whatever you want us to put out there.
I was told I can't buy a lottery ticket.
Just can't win.
Can't collect anyway.
Not in the current scope of work. Very good. Several things that we have going on relative to calendars we want to make sure that you are aware of. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, and we will be recognizing the efforts and celebrating our own veterans that are part of our workforce here. If your schedule will allow you to join us for breakfast tomorrow morning, that is when we're gathering to do that program. And we are very, very fortunate to have many of our veterans that are going to be able to join us tomorrow morning. We'll be over at the Police Department Training Center, the second floor there at the Police Department. So again, we hope that your schedule will allow you to come by and join us for that tomorrow morning. Just as a matter of information, I unfortunately will not be at that breakfast tomorrow morning. The mayor will be presiding over that meeting with our employees tomorrow morning. I will be traveling with the Greenville Chamber of Commerce. There are about 85 delegates from the Greenville area that will be traveling to Austin, Texas. We gather tomorrow morning about 4:45 a.m. at GSB, and we return around 1:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. It is a whirlwind opportunity, but myself and Reno Deaton from the Greer Development Corporation will be representing the Greer community as we will visit with the Austin community to learn more of what they have been able to accomplish and what we may see on the horizon as impact for us and opportunities for us as a community. We'll also be spending some time talking with our colleagues that are in the adjoining areas and learning how those communities that are impacted by a community like Austin, how they deal and work with that. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a whirlwind opportunity for us, but we certainly believe it will have great, great benefits for us as we continue to look at opportunities here in our own community and those things that we want to accomplish. Many of the things that are in our community master plan, this is a community that has addressed many of those issues previously and have had great success with some of those. One of those particularly is the development of a section of their city as an arts district. And so we're very interested in learning a bit more about what was involved in putting everything in place to redevelop that area of their city. Very, very similar in nature to us. It was a warehouse district that they looked to renovate, and they've had some great success with that. So looking forward to that opportunity. As you prepare your calendars as well, I ask that you be reminded on December the 11th is when we bring in all of our employees for our annual Employee Appreciation Breakfast. That will be here in this facility, and it's always a great time for us to do that. It's just us as a work team, as a work family, we get together once a year to do that appreciation breakfast, and that again will be taking place on December the 11th. A couple of things that just as a matter of information of where we stand. Many of you always will, particularly this time of year, will ask questions about how we are in comparison to our prior year, how we're moving along in our development. Well, as of October 31st, we achieved a milestone at $97 million for investment in both residential and commercial development. We have 200 housing starts as of the end of October. That is ahead of where we were for all of last year, and ahead of obviously where we were at that point in last year, and another 22 multifamily projects as we continue to move forward. As we look at November and December, we certainly are anticipating that this will be a very successful year for us in regards to development of our community. Investments that are being made here, industrial investments, commercial investments, and investments in our residential areas as well. During executive session this evening, I would like to request council's consideration of two items. One is a legal matter that I need to provide some information to council to bring you up to date on an issue that may involve some litigation. The other is a contractual matter. It is a request for a purchase of city property by an individual, and I need to brief council on that request as well. One legal and one contractual.
Thank you, sir. Council, if you would join me in addressing items of old business, the first of which this evening is the first reading of ordinance number 22-2015. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of properties owned by Ira Handy located on Oakland Avenue, McKissick Street, and Fuller Street from C2 commercial to RM1 residential multifamily. Mr. Pace, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As requested at our last meeting, I have asked Mr. Handy, owner of the property, if he would be present with us today to further discuss any intent that he may have with his property. And just looking at some further information that I have prepared as notes, is the total property area we're looking at is almost 18,000 square feet of property, 17,800. Under RM1, this would allow for the construction of one three-family dwelling at most. If it were to be R7.5, which is what the remainder of the neighborhood is, it would in fact give him 2.5 units, so really two single-family dwelling units could also be built there. And the three-family unit would require 15,000 square feet of property. In order to bump it up to a quad unit, fourplex, he would have to have 18,000 square foot, so he falls under that threshold. The lot is approximately about 95 feet wide and 175 feet deep from Oakland Avenue. But again, that is information in regards to this case, Mr. Mayor, and I believe that Mr. Handy may be with us tonight also.
By show of hand, is Mr. Handy with us this evening? Sir, if you'd like to address council, if you would come to the podium, please. We'll be glad to entertain any information that you might care to share with us and or answer any questions if you're willing to do that. And If you will, simply just state your name and address as a matter of the record. The floor will be yours, sir.
Good evening.
Good.
My name is Ira Handy. My address is 237 Jones Road, Taylor, South Carolina, 29687. I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to speak in reference to the property. My plan for the property, and it's been that way for some time now, is to create a senior citizen area. It's not to build apartments. That's what I'm not looking to do. That I'm looking to do duplexes and something of that nature. Maybe one bedroom, no more than two. One bedroom, possibly one bath. Something nice for senior citizens. I think opposition that I'm getting is apartments and high crime. What I'm looking to do is just do something really nice for the senior citizens, and in my opinion, I don't think that's going to affect the crime rate or anything like that. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
I guess this is a matter of clarification both for yourself and Mr. Pace. Mr. Pace, the lot will support one triplex?
Both lots together.
Both lots
combined.
together will support one triplex?
One quad. One triplex. You are
One triplex?
Yes.
But it will not support two duplexes?
Um,
But it will
no,
support
sir.
two single
I
families?
think it's over 18,000 if you want
Okay.
that.
Or two single family, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
That's the lot that's zoned commercial, correct?
No, that's if
Okay,
it was
that's-
on RM1.
Okay, RM1.
That's what you had requested.
That's right.
And Planning Commission had voted to recommend approval of that.
Okay, we labored through that at the last meeting. So.
Yeah.
Council floor is open for questions of Mr. Handy at this point.
I don't have any questions from him. I just want to state, because I've spoken to a lot of people in the neighborhood, that they don't want any duplexes. They want it to be single-family residential homes. They're not interested in any duplexes. And one of the things that Ms. Burnett was about to bring up is she doesn't like the way that the property is being kept up now, because for the last 5 to 6 years, the grass is not being cut. Even the grass is not cut now. Grass is knee-high now. There's trees on the property that need to be taken down that are rotten and dead, and they're not be taken out. And they don't trust the fact that you say that it'll be senior housing, that's what will actually go in there, because the duplexes and things that they have now, people have always said it'd be senior housing, but it winds up being low income that brings in crime and the drugs and that. And they know that the neighborhood is more stable when we have people like the gentleman that came in and bought his home, that strengthens the neighborhood as opposed to your duplexes and that where they've had nothing but trouble out of the duplexes, nothing but crime. They'd rather see it stay with the C3 zoning than to be zoned where you can put any type of duplex, anything other than a single family home. They have no problem with a single family home, but the neighborhood is against anything, any duplex, any triplex, anything like that. They're staunchly against that. They don't want to see it because they know what happens with it,
Is that, well, I guess basically what you're saying is duplexes is just a fact of they don't want duplexes. I'm looking at a tenant issue, whether it be senior citizens or single family. You can still have tenants in a single family home if it's rental property. You're looking at home ownership. I'm looking to retain the land, not necessarily sell it. If I build single family and rent it out, you still have to, look at the tenant issue.
Even the tenant issue that we have now with people that rent homes out in the Nemo area, we don't have no problems out of them. We're having the problems when they're in the duplexes and when they're in the apartments and that. That's where we're having the problems out. We ain't having no problems with people that are renting. We don't have any problems with people that are buying homes and renovating them. The problems are coming when you bring in and even to your point about senior citizens, they've had problems where you had a senior citizen that was in a place, and then the young people came in and took over from that, over the apartments from that senior citizen, grandkids, whatever. You can't control that, you know. And it's much better, and the neighborhood is strengthened when it is a single-family home. They built anywhere from 10 to 15 homes in the Needmore community in the last, I say, 10 years or so. We hadn't had any problems out of the people that bought those homes. We hadn't had any problems out of them. And the people that are renting the houses that are in Needmore now, we're not having any problems out of those. You know, and this is coming from people who've lived in the community. I lived in that community all my life, you know, 30, 40 years. And I know, you know, that it's strengthened when it's a single-family home. You know, they don't have any problem if you do it with a single-family home, but they're not interested in the duplex.
Well, I don't think they have any
They're
problem with
stumped.
senior citizens, that's just my opinion, but I have a tie to the community as well. You know, I was raised on Forest Street, but, you know, we moved. But my point is, I still don't think you'd have an issue with senior citizens. And that's what the plan is. You know, even if you, you know, did single family, I think you're still gonna have a, you know, problem in putting tenants there.
But we're not
It's
having
just
any
a
problems.
real-
But as of now, we're not having any problems out of the single-family homes. Not having any problems out there. Our problems are coming from the duplexes and what you want to do, triplexes. That's where our problems are coming from, and from the apartments. That's where the community is having problems from, and that's a fact.
Well,
You know.
duplexes are different from apartments.
Well, they're having problems out of the duplex. We got duplexes in there now. We know what a duplex is.
Do you have
And people in
stats
the
on
community
that?
know what it is. We're having problems with the duplexes that we got now. We're having problems out of.
I guess you got stats on that?
Yeah.
Well, let's reframe this conversation just a little bit, because I do think we need to be at least careful about framing this conversation around the undesirability of duplexes or triplexes, either one. I mean, there is a place in our community for that type of housing, whether or not it's in this particular location or not. I'm not going to argue that point right now, but I live across the street from 5 duplexes, and they are inhabited by senior citizens for the most part. And I've been there 20 years, and I don't know that there's been an issue with that. So I think a great deal of a rental situation, whether it be a single-family home or a duplex or a triplex or an apartment complex, comes from the management side of it, rather than some of the problems that people may be having by just being lax in their management of their property. So in that regard, I don't think that we can unequivocally say that every duplex is an issue in our city. Well, we may have folks that have allowed theirs to exhibit some behaviors that may not be something you'd want in your community, but I do know for a fact that there are a number of both the duplexes and other multiple family kind of situations that we do find that there are certainly good citizens that live in those housing structures. Others, questions? Comments?
If we go with the zoning with RM1, we're talking about, he's got 2 options. It's 2 single families or a triplex. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure, that would be correct.
So no duplexes, either a triplex or 2 single
Well, I mean,
families.
you could do a duplex.
1 duplex,
Right.
1 triplex, or 2 single family, right?
Correct, but not a combination of the 3.
And the rest of the parcels that we're discussing tonight, are they tied to this piece, or are they,
No, sir, they're separate.
they're kind of up on the corner, right?
That's the other ones that we will hear tonight, yes. At the corner of Forest and Oakland. Mr. Handy's property is only the 2 lots in between McKissick, Fuller, and Oakland. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. He I didn't check that. He owns 2 other lots behind him, which are zoned single family.
Okay.
And those are currently R7.5.
And those are on Fuller or McKissick? Or
They
would each, one would be on one would be on the other?
They could face either street.
So he owns the lots adjacent to these?
To the Rear of them, yes.
So that,
So he owns that whole strip down through there. Is that what you're saying?
Not quite the whole street.
No, there is a house at 128, a little bit further down.
Yeah, I think here. I think the house is here.
Yeah, that shows it
So
right there.
there's three, yes, sir.
That's Durham,
Okay.
then you, and then you.
now the other property being zoned R7, that can only be single-family housing?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am. As it is currently zoned today, those two, one of them being .41 of an acre, and the other isn't that large, also is zoned 7.5, or 7.5, excuse me.
And remind us, C2 is transitional commercial, is that correct?
Yes, sir, more of a neighborhood commercial as we refer to it.
So it could be office space,
Retail.
Retail. It comes with a recommendation from the Planning Commission to overturn or require a supermajority of the council.
Yes, sir. Comes as a recommendation of RM1.
And if the request is denied as written with approval from the Planning Commission, it cannot be brought back to council for 1 year, that's correct?
That is correct.
We're talking about this being used for senior housing. I mean, there's no way on the front end to make sure that that's how it's going to be used. I mean, is that, could you use like a DRD zoning there and call it senior housing, or is there any way to?
You could do that as a proposed request, however, he didn't have the proposed request right now. The city sought to rezone it from the commercial characteristics, which doesn't fit that portion of the neighborhood, as C2, and we sought originally the R7.5, which would made it part of existing what's there, but again, with other abilities that are within the future land use mapping, it makes it available for either single family or multifamily in that area. And that's where Mr. Handy requested to look at it from an RM1 residential multifamily district in there. And that's what was presented to the Planning Commission and was discussed at public hearing in length.
Other questions of Mr. Handy while he's at the podium before we excuse him? Comments? Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time and information. If you want to have a seat, we'll,
Yes, sir.
if we have something else, we'll call you back if we need additional information. Thank you. Council, for further discussion, we're going to need a motion to entertain 22-2015 for further discussion. Without a motion, ordinance will die. I'll ask a second time. I'll ask one last time. Does anybody want to make a motion for the first reading of ordinance number 22-2015 for the purpose of discussion? Not hearing a motion. The ordinance is defeated. With that, we'll move to the item B, which is the second and final reading of ordinance number 23-2015. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Leon Hicks Real Estate LLC located at 100 Oakland Avenue from C2 Commercial to R7.5 Residential Single Family. Mr. Pace, any additional or new information in that regard?
No information in regards to 100 Oakland Avenue, sir.
I'll entertain a motion to receive 23-2015.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Questions? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance number 24-2015, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Alicia Drummond located at 103 Forest Street from C2 Commercial to R 7.5 Residential. Mr. Pace?
No new information, Mr. Mayor, in regards to 103 Forest Street.
I'll entertain a motion to receive.
Second.
Motion and second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance number 25-2015, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Carmelita Foster located at 107 Forest Street from C2 to R 7.5. Entertain a motion to receive. Excuse
Again,
me,
Mayor.
Mr.
I'm
Pace.
sorry. I'm sorry. No new information in regards to 107 Forest Drive. Pardon me for the interruption.
No problem. I got ahead of you there. Now I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comment? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thank you, sir. Item E, second and final reading of ordinance number 27-2015, an ordinance amending the City of Greer Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, City Council, Division 1, generally Section 2-36, Compensation. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Comments?
Yeah, just a matter of record, going back to this raise for the council, and I know I said it in words at the last council meeting, and I know, as was pointed out, the mayor does a wonderful job. He does. He's makes a lot of appearances. He goes to different places and represents the city great, as does the other council members here. And as I had said the other week, my problem is that with Congress, and they go to give theirself a raise, I get kind of upset when it comes time for them to vote on their own raise. So therefore, by me voting on my own raise, I feel like I would be a hypocrite by voting for me to get a raise when I get angry when Congress gets to vote for themselves a raise. Everything that's going on with Congress, and the American people don't feel like they're doing their duties, and everybody's in a uproar now about things not getting done and so forth. And so I know that doesn't represent this council, because I think everyone on this council is great, and I think the city does a fantastic job, and all the council. But I just wanted to let that be known, that that's my feelings. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood, Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
No.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance number 28-2015, an ordinance to amend the City of Greer Code of Ordinances, Chapter 90, Utilities, Article 2, Sewer Use and Pretreatment, Division 4, Prohibitions and Limitations on Wastewater Discharges, and repealing and replacing the attachment in its entirety. Entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we move to items of new business, the first of which is the first reading of ordinance number 29-2015. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of a portion of property owned by William and Carolyn Doris located at 16 Quail Creek Drive by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said property. Mr. Pace?
Mayor and Council, this is a tract of land, this is a portion of a tract that is owned by the Dorises. Some reason years ago, whenever the initial portion was annexed into the city, it's obvious that Mr. Doris at some point purchased an additional 3 3/4 acres that abuts the Metro Court, which is an industrial area to the rear of his property. He has his property now under contract to be sold for development purposes of constructing an additional 42 homes at the end of Quail Creek Drive that is currently located within the city. His overall acreage, I believe, is about 17, roughly about 17 acres for the entire portion of it. But again, things over the past have kind of gotten convoluted out there for some reason. That portion is not in the city. It has a Greenville County zoning classification, I believe, of I-1. There's another portion of his property that is zoned R12, and another portion that has another zoning on it. So we're, in effect, cleaning up all of those properties for development purposes. The DRD will be for this portion as well as the other portion at a later date and time. We're reviewing those with the Planning Commission on Monday night, the 16th, for review of the entire DRD package as it will be presented to the Planning Commission at that time. If you have any further questions, I'll try to entertain those now.
By show of hand, is there an owner or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Let the record indicate no one said so. Questions of Mr. Pace? Motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
Comments? Questions? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. First reading of ordinance number 30-2015, an ordinance to provide for the annexation of a property and portions of a property owned by Cullum GSP 081 LP located on the northwest corner of Genoble Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of I-1 for said property. Mr. Pace?
Again, Mayor and Council, this is 41.5 acres that has been purchased by Mr. Cullum in respect to developing an industrial park, an expansion of the Velocity Park that's currently there, and part of that houses Lear Corporation as reference, so you know kind of where it's at on Genoble Road there at Robinson Road. One of the tracts, the larger tract, is 34.05 acres. However, originally it included a piece that was across Robinson Road. That portion will not be included in this annexation, so it is 3504 for that. And then there is a smaller tract that is adjacent to this that will be annexed as part of it, also equating to the 41.58 acres.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Mr. Deaton, would you like to add anything to this discussion?
Mr. Cullum apologized he couldn't attend this evening. Greer Local Corporation worked very closely with him in creating Velocity Park. He asked me to come tonight and answer any questions council might have with respect to this request.
Council, Mr. Deaton is available to answer any questions. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion or questions of Mr. Deaton or Mr. Pace. Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thank you. First reading of ordinance 31-2015, an ordinance amending the City of Greer Code of Ordinances to add a section creating an accommodations tax advisory committee establishing guidelines and procedures therefore. Mr. David Seifert will bring us additional information in that regard.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you will recall,
At the last meeting, we came to you seeking your direction in filling, in getting individuals to fill this committee that is, excuse me, required under state law. As we were preparing that slate, we realized that this committee is not specifically identified in our own code of ordinances. So we bring to you tonight the first reading of this ordinance 31-2015 to create that committee. It is, the ordinance is set up under the guidelines and regulations of the state law, authorizing and requiring the committee, and then also setting up dates and general guidelines for that committee.
Council will entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Questions of Mr. Seifert? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council, you have in your packet this evening the 2016 meeting schedule. It is been provided for your review. I am sure Ms. Duncan will be glad to answer any questions you have in that regard. No specific action, yes, there will be specific action to approve that. So I'll entertain a motion to receive.
Motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Comments?
Do I get extra for meeting on my birthday?
We'll have a cake.
You don't want that extra, believe me.
Wait,
Comments? I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments, questions,
No.
discussion? Oh, have we?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Y'all getting it tonight.
You got me thrown off my game here. Motion and a second on the floor. Any further comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Miss Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas, Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, in executive session, we have one legal matter to consider tonight and one contractual matter to consider tonight. Do I hear a motion to adjourn into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Miss Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Did it now.
Council, in executive session, we've considered two matters, one legal matter and one contractual matter. We've taken no action in regards to either matter. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
A motion?
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Miss Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we stand adjourned.